Gemara Sota. So there's a guy who sat in front who always ran the errand. So he says to me, "Jim, go get me a soda." So at that moment, in the office, he got an emergency phone call. So one of the secretaries, a middle-aged woman in the office, came up to Rav Soloveitchik's room to tell him he had an emergency phone call, and she got to the door. The same time the buffer got to the door
with the Gemara.
So he looks up and he sees him standing next to a lady and he says, "I meant a safer, you idiot."
She put a shoulder.
You were in the Rav Shir? You participated in the Rav?
I went for a brief while. I went to the Rav Lupshitz instead.
Okay, let me start off with our learning sponsors and then we'll get into today's Gemara. Okay. A year of learning Isaac and Evelyn Blachor in memory of his sister Chaya Rachel Bas Isser. Friends of Leonie Meiselman, Leah Sabra Bas Chanach Zundel. Friends of Melaskotsky, Moshe Zelig ben Mordechai, Martin Lippman and family in memory of his wife Malka Chana Bas Pinchas. Friends of Herb Jeremiah, Tzvi ben Ze'ev. Friends of Sam Coleman, Shmuel ben Yaakov. Friends of Gideon Lazinski, Mordechai, Shlomo ben Meir. A month of learning, Malin Haran Haller, in memory of his mother, Fega Bas Yaakov. B. Pizer, in memory of her stepfather, Avram Michal ben Shmuel Halevi. Jill and Perry Meltzer, in memory of her father, Yaakov ben Yosef. Andrea and David Dolny, in memory of her mother, Evel Tzina Bat Shimshon. Friends and students of Rabbi Shalom Kornblum, Rav Shalom ben Mordechai. Haran and Mel Haller, in memory of her father, Yosef Eliezer ben Tzvi Hirsch. Mark Scher, in memory of his father, Mordechai ben Menachem Manis. Mark Linder, in memory of his nephew, Eretz Paul ben Surlus. A week of learning by Kayla Heino, in memory of her father, Chaim Yehuda Beib ben Betzalel. By Susan Fruchter Kramer and Shelley Kramer, in memory of her mother, Bela Bat Yeshaya. Today being the 30th of March, we have a day of learning by Sharon and Fred Lisker, in memory of her father, Yisrael Moshe ben Elia Halevi. By Stephen Hamburger, in memory of his father-in-law, Shmuel ben Chaim. And by B. Worden, in memory of her father, Shmuel ben Yosef. May Shemus have an Aliyah, crank or feel Velti Shir Shem Lataliah, O B'nai Israel, a good Gaben Shtiar. There will be one day of learning for tomorrow, aside from what will come out in the new bulletin. Okay, I'm just reminding everybody, today, 4 o'clock at Century Grill, right? Yeah.
Speaking of Sheldon Sofa.
Oh, Sofa, I gave you the wrong one. Okay. That's told you I'm already, yes.
Ready into Sofa. Like a big surprise on the end of something. Didn't see it.
A big surprise?
Yeah.
What?
You're gonna come out of the cake?
You're gonna see.
He's going to provide soda water for everybody.
Scotch and soda.
Friedman. Yeah, Friedman's father-in-law.
Get all of your soda jokes
This is
ready.
Mr. Friedman. Every rest of my first name is Mr. Friedman.
Uh-huh. Okay, so I saying that number one, number two, Friday, tomorrow, Michael will give the shiur and we'll start Sota. I do recommend that if you're using Art Scroll or not, but if you can look at the introduction that Art Scroll gives for the Masechet, it is worthwhile looking at. Okay,
It's even better if you read it.
rather than just look at it.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. All right. Okay, so I want to just clarify that today we're just going to do Samech Vav Amud Aleph. Okay, and I'm going to save what's there is the Gemara for this afternoon for the Siyum and things like that, which is basically a short section of a Gadit. Okay, so people will know. Okay, so if you want to just Xerox, that or copy that piece.
I'll just do the top.
Yeah.
You'll have to say the 4 words.
Amale Rav Lechia Bray.
I'm not gonna do a whole page for
Okay.
Omerle Rav.
No, although Corin has just if you're ever interested, by the way, I just want to point this out in who some of the Tanaim and Amorim are. Okay, there are a number of good sources. Art Scroll has an outstanding book, okay, which is an introduction to Talmud, okay, that has biographies of everybody. Okay, there is, of course, if your Hebrew is good enough, there is a Hebrew volume on Tanaim and Amoraim. And if you're interested at all, Koren, when a new Tana or an Amora is mentioned, they include in its notes the history of somebody, of the person. So I'm not going to go into that this afternoon, but I just wanted people to know, okay, there are times when it's worthwhile to understand who is saying it, because sometimes when we see that there are different generations, questions have come up in the shiur about how come so-and-so is asking a question and he's 2 or 3 generations behind the earlier person. Okay, all right. So just to pick up again from our Gemara on the bottom of Samech Hey Amud Beis. Okay, Menachani Mili, we said Rabbi Nassim says Kra Bazav et Zovo, citing that part of the pasuk, and the Gemara then went on to tell us that their machloket was between how do you darshan the number of flows that the Zav may have, where you can still question, examine them or not. Okay, according to one view, all right, Rabbi Eliezer Darshe Etim, okay, that he felt that meant at the 4th flow you could not examine, okay, and that was very significant because remember at that point clearly not only did it ruin their 7 days that they were naki, but they had to bring a korban, okay, as opposed to doing that examination or doing that situation. The rabbis did not darshan etim, which meant that on the 3rd re'iyah, the 3rd sighting of a flow, that was when that meant that the 7 days of cleanliness was ruined for the Zav and had to bring the korban. Okay, so therefore so that was the end. What that piece of the Mishnah was what we looked at and concluded with yesterday. Unso usfeiko, our Mishnah said. What happens if he had a mishap or an accident, something, usfeiko? Okay, or there was a doubt. Okay, so remember what? And part of it was, I wouldn't use the word out of his control per se, but remember in the earlier examples, the text, the Mishnah had given us under what could something he have eaten cause it? Could something he drank cause it? Could his jumping cause it? Could this cause it? And as what outside factors, thank you. Okay, what outside factors could have been such that caused him to have this flow? Okay, and it's very clear from the Gemara, okay, that hashkatat, that there's a difference between a zav situation and somebody who just, and zera, okay, in that situation, okay? Although the question does come up in the Gemara, as we've seen, okay, could it be that if, all right, I'll hold off on that for a moment. Okay, so now we get to Samech Vav Amud Aleph, the top of the Amud. And the question that I believe Rava is directing is, what about, okay, the third Ziva flow? What's the situation there if we hold by the rabbis? Okay, that in that situation, okay, if the person sees that, okay, as a result, all of their Nikiyim are wiped away, okay, and they have to start their count for Shiva Nikiyim all over again, and they will have to bring a korban.
Unless they can use one of these.
Unless they have an exception, right, unless one of those items, right. Okay, so Amar Rava, this is Rava, lo tema safek chaza, safek lo chaza. Don't say that the doubt is whether he saw, okay, a third flow, or did not see a third flow.
Meaning it happened or it didn't.
Right? Ella rather, vadai chaza. Certainly he saw. Safek mechamat shechvat zera, safek mechamat re'iyah. But the doubt is going to be whether what he saw was an emission that would classify him as a zav, or whether what came out of his body was something else. Okay, was semen. Okay, that's the point. Okay, so kevan sheniskak l'tuma, says our Mishnah, since he was clarified or declared, okay, already tameh. Okay, what happens even without any direct carrying, right? Sfeiko tameh. We would say, therefore, in that situation, even when there's a doubt, we would render him tameh. Okay. I point that out, Rava's statement, because remember we saw an earlier drasha that pointed to the pasuk that said letaher o letameh, and the tendency was to say, if that's what the pasuk says, maybe when there's a doubt, we should consider it tahor and not tameh. Okay? Right, exactly. Okay, but I wanted us to keep that in mind. So what happens? Shichvat zar'o tme'ah. But here we said that now our Mishnah is telling us that with the excretion of semen, there too he's tameh. Is it the same? Lamai, why does our Mishnah have to include this discussion here? Ilema lemaga, if we're talking about where there's a situation of contact, okay, migara, mishkavat zera de tahor, can we say that the emission of semen is any of the less significant? I'm going to use that word for the moment. Okay, that one would be tahor and the zav would only be tameh.
Anybody who
Okay, that in other words, the emission is going to be that there's real difference between them. Ella rather,
anybody who's about carry is automatically
say tameh, right? Okay, so in other words, is there any difference? You're going to say one is less stringent. Okay, yeah. Ella rather, zaro shel zav metameh b'masa. Okay, but the shichvat zera of a zav also is going to be tameh regarding carrying.
more stringent.
Okay, we'll see. Man, right,
A regular bowel carrier.
is
Another
normally
individual would have to have
Right.
physical contact
okay.
in order to become tummy. But if the
The
guy
zav,
is a zav,
that's not
assumption-
based on simply real physical
well, the
contact.
assumption is that since the urethra will have some particles of the ziva flow, that an ejaculation will have some
Some
ziva
Aspects
mixed in,
of ziva.
and therefore it's tummy.
Okay.
But even if
Okay,
you
I didn't
contact
want to
with
get
the-
to that yet, but you're right. Okay, all right. So what happens? So this is the question then. Could the person who had, I'm going to phrase it this way, and then we'll go on. Because one who's quotes, I'm going to put in quotes, simply had Shechvat Zera, how would their level of Tuma be any different from the Zav? Okay, that's the part of the issue. Okay, so the Gemara goes on, Man Shamat Laha, the Amar Shechvat Zera Shel Zav Metame B'Masa. So who is it then? That's the one that's teaching that this idea that if one excretes semen, it's automatically going to include some drops of the Zav's flow as well and render the person Tameh, okay, more than just through carrying or contact, more than just through contact. Okay, and carrying. Okay. Ilema Hai Tana. If we say it's this Tana, the Tanya who teaches Rabbi Eliezer Omer, where Rabbi Eliezer teaches Shechvat Zaro Shel Zav Eino Mitameh B'Masa, that the semen excretion of a Zav Labriut, okay, does not render one Tameh through a situation of carrying. The Rabbi Yoshua Omer, but Rabbi Yoshua says Mitameh B'Masa, that it does render one Tameh in a situation regarding carrying. Lafi she'i efshar la below tzictzuchei ziva, because it's impossible for one to emit some semen without some droplets of the zava flow being included in it. Okay, that's the point. What happens? Afilu Rabbi Yoshua lo amar ela mishum tzictzuchei ziva. But even when regards to Rabbi Yoshua's statement, okay, where he renders the person tameh in that case, what happens? He only says it because he believes that some droplets of the ziva expulsion would be included. Aval ba'ene, but if you're going to call it semen without any ziv, okay, or pure, all right, using that phrase, Lo Amar, Rabbi Yoshua wouldn't say that. Okay? Ela Amar Rav Adabar Ahava. But rather it's Rav Adabar Ahava who tells us, Lomar She'ein Tolin Ba. Okay, that I'm going to translate She'ein Tolin Ba, sort of based on Artzvah. We don't attribute it to any prior issues of semen. Okay? Sava Rav Papa. Kame de Rava Lamaima, and Rav Papa was thinking about explaining this halacha before Rabbah, okay, and to say the following, to explain it this way. Aide chulsha hu dechaze. Perhaps it was because of some weakness, okay, as a result of having, okay, put forward the semen first. In other words, after having produced semen, he's weakened, and therefore we can't apply the leniency to say that that conforms to the Zav's flow, okay? To say that it wouldn't apply, okay? What happens, okay? Amar le Rava, but Rava responds, Vahatnan, but aren't we taught elsewhere in a Braita the following? Ger shenit gayer, a individual who converts, okay, and mitame miyad beziva, that were he to have see a flow, he would become automatically tame, which would seem to improve, right? Okay, and it would imply that chulsha doesn't apply, that any previous act, okay, let's call it that, such as the expulsion of semen, wouldn't apply, and therefore you cannot use that leniency at all. Okay, Amarle. So now what happens? Rav Adabar Ahava responds, Ein lecha choli gadol mizeh. You don't. I wouldn't tell this to any convert that I worked with. Okay. But you don't have any greater, I'm going to use the word emotional stress, aside from physical stress on a person when they convert. Okay?
Because now all of a sudden he's got all these rules.
That's how the art scroll wants us to learn it. There's more than all these mitzvahs. There is actual emotional and physical stress on the person when they go through conversion. Okay? All right? So that's his point. Ein lecha choli gadol mizeh, ela tana'ahi, but rather this is a machloket tana'i, the Tanya, as was taught in the following bright. Shichvat zera shel zav, mitamei b'masa, kol me'et la'et, that the excretion of siman by a zav is going to render the person, okay, tamei for a 24-hour period. Okay, from 1 hour to the next, 24 hours. The Rabbi Yossi Omer, says Rabbi Yossi, Yomo, that the Shichvat Zera of the person only renders them Tameh that particular day until nightfall. V'mai kemiflage, what are they arguing about? Bid Shmuel, in a statement that was made by Shmuel. The Shmuel Rami, okay, that Shmuel raised two different psukim and showed that they were in contradiction. Ketiv, in one pasuk it says, Ki yeh b'cha ish asher lo yeh tahor mikre laila. Okay, that the person will not be tahor because of a mikra laila, an incident at night. Okay, uktiv, and the second pasuk teaches, lifnot erev yirchatz b'mayim, that before nightfall, okay, he should wash, in other words, immerse in water. Man da'amar me'et la'et, according to the one who says it's a 24-hour period of tumah, diek milifnot erev. He derives that, okay, from the fact that it says before evening, which means one day into the next day, okay? Ve'idach diek, and the other one who derived diek mi mikra laila. He derives it from an occurrence that occurred at night, which means that by the time you get to the next night, you should be tahor. Okay. Uman da'amar milafnot erev, and according to the one who darshans from before evening, hakativ mikra laila. But isn't there also, we have the pasuk that says mikra laila, an evening situation. Amarle. So he responds, urcha dekeri lematya balayla. It is often the case that
normal.
Okay, that nor and in many situations, okay, that the carry that one becomes a carry at during the time because he does his thing at night. Okay, all right. So now we get to our new Mishnah. Nazir Haya Shmuel. Okay, now according to this Mishnah, it wants us to understand that the prophet Shmuel was a Nazarene. Okay, so that would immediately tell us then he must be, in addition to one other individual that the Tanakh tells us was a Nazarite, namely Shimshon. Okay, so therefore, what? Kidivrei Rabbi Nehorai, and that was according to the view of Rabbi Nehorai. Okay, Shnei Amar. Why? How does Rabbi Nehorai learn this? Umora lo ya'aleh al rosho. Because there, okay, we have a pasuk regarding the Shmuel that says, right, that let's call Morah here, I use the word razor.
Well,
Okay,
it's really, you can't translate.
I know, it's a question. We're going to see that's what the whole issue of the Gemara is going to be. Okay, that this Morah should not be on his head. Okay. V'ne'emar b'Shimshon, but we also have the example of Shimshon, where there also we have the word umorah. Okay, and notice, by the way, in both cases the word morah has a hey at the end. Okay, now what happens? V'ne'emar b'Shmuel. Okay, but it also says with regards to Shmuel, umora. Okay, ma mora ha'amura b'shimshon. Whereas the term mora, when it applies to Shimshon, indicates that he becomes a Nazir. Af mora ha'amura b'Shmuel Nazir. So here's Rabbi Nehorai learning this, okay, as a hekesh based on the word mora, right? Amar Rabbi Yossi, says Rabbi Yossi, hold on a second. V'halo ein mora ela shel basar v'adam. But doesn't the term mora, with a slightly different spelling, however, okay, have also the question of fear or awe, okay? Okay, and therefore, doesn't that simply apply to fear or awe of human beings? So how can you use that hekesh to say that Shmuel is a Nazir? All right. Amarle Rabbi Nehorai. Rabbi Nehorai defends his interpretation by telling us, V'halo kfar ne'amar. But already elsewhere in regards to Shmuel, we have another pasuk that tells us the following: Vayomer Shmuel, ech elech v'shama Shaul v'hargeni. How will I go? In other words, to to anoint David, and Shmuel will hear about it, and okay, and he's going to kill me. Okay, so in other words, that pasuk, according to Rabbi Nehorai, already tells us elsewhere that Shmuel has fear or awe of basar v'dam. Okay, and right, and that therefore that's why we can't use the word morah there as to teach. Okay, to teach that. Okay, that's why Rabbi Nehorai uses it for Nazirs. Okay, Vayom, right? We say right. Shekfar haya alav mora shel basar v'dam, that he already had prior to that fear and awe of human beings. Okay, so to this afternoon we'll pick up with the Gemara, which I said is a piece of Labriut, a piece of Agadita. Okay, what? That really has almost no direct connection with what was done there. But maybe we'll look, maybe we'll present. Okay, maybe we'll try to see if there's some. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi Green.
Right. Michael, have a good, safe trip. I know you're leaving soon, right?
No, I'm in Fort Lee. I'm already in New Jersey.
Oh, you're already there. Okay. Have a Chag Kasher v'Sameach. Okay.
I kosher sameach to the whole shir. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay. Alright.
Rabbi Green, has Harvey been around?
Harvey has been